Well, hey there, fans. It's JonnyDel with the JonnyDel Show. I'm here with Aaron from the Unnecessary Bluntness Podcast. We decided to get together and preview the 49ers at Panthers matchup this Sunday. I saw his stuff on YouTube and thought, man, this is a guy who's doing some really cool stuff with the film. He knows what he's talking about, which is the most important thing. And I reached out and said, hey, let's get together and put something out. He agreed. Cool for him. He opened my DM, which that's a step in boldness himself, because you never know who's gonna be sending you some crazy messages. But well, Aaron, how's it going? How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate you having me on. I mean, I feel like it's a privilege to collab with anybody. I mean, to just have you feel like I have something important enough to say about my team so that you want to have me on your channel. It's an honor, in my opinion. So I appreciate you having me.
Hey, absolutely. So let me ask you, what's kind of your background with football and the X's and O's side of things? Because it's not something that everybody's really into, And as you know, when you watch film, especially of like of the pro game, it's a different level, and the complexities at a different level. So it's something that I think a lot of people really want to do, but don't understand sometimes the amount of effort that has to go into the learning side of things. So what was it that got you down this path?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I played Little League. So I started when I was 10, but thanks, mom and dad, like Baker Mayfield would say, I'm not that tall. I'm about 5'8". I've been short pretty much my whole life. I was a 5'5" wide receiver coming out of high school. I did end up playing Division III football, so that's kind of where I got most of my knowledge as far as like the nuances of game. You have to put in a little bit more work watching that film, understanding your role, but not just yours, everybody else's. I played running back personally, so that's why I know a little bit more about the offensive side of the ball, but you also have to understand to a certain extent of the defense. So I understand defenses to at a higher level, but a little bit more of the nuances from the offensive perspective when it comes to technique and stuff. I'm not a quarterback guru by any means, so I can't tell you about hips and torque and all that stuff. But watching film and all that stuff and being undersized, I was fast, but being undersized, you have to have some kind of edge. So I like to use my mind, my mental game, and technique as the edge I needed for stuff. So I try to pride myself being the smartest player when I played, just because I was so small, and use those things to my advantage to make up for my lack of, I guess, physical traits that I couldn't change. You can lift weights, but they haven't invented a machine in the gym that can get you taller. When they do, I will be the first one
Bro,
to
I
sign
I
up
I
for it.
can I can feel that so much. I'm 5'8",
Okay.
and when I was in high school, at my sophomore year, I was 5'6". I was 5'6" and about a buck 65.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm a short Italian guy, so I was short and wide shouldered, and so linebacker was my role. I was not fast enough to be a DB, uh, and and my first year, man, I didn't know anything of what I was doing. And so I literally just rode the bench trying to learn all year. And
Yeah.
I was trying to learn on the fly. And it was the same thing. I hit a point where I was like, all right, I'm definitely not gonna be any taller than these guys who are already 6'1". My dad was 5'3". Okay, he
Oh,
was a
man.
short Italian man. My mom is a short Mexican woman, is
Oh,
five
man.
foot four. So I knew, like, I was already near maxed out. So I can feel that where you go, okay, I have to have a different edge than being bigger, stronger, faster than everybody else. I've got
You
to be
did good. You
faster
did pretty
in the
good
in the
getting.
mind.
Yeah, you did good getting to 5'8" though, man. Kudos to
Hey,
you.
that's what I keep telling people that they don't believe me. People who didn't know my parents, they always give me a hard time for being short, and I go, you
Yeah.
don't even know, because I'm a giant in my family, by a good 4 inches. Like, my sisters are all five
Yeah.
foot three and four
Oh,
foot
man.
11. Of course, I did have a lady in the supermarket the other day really remind me how short I was. She asked me if I could grab some chips off the top shelf for her. I reached. It
Yeah.
wasn't happening. And so I had to sit there and tell this lady, I'm sorry, I'm not your man
Mm,
for the job. And I looked down the aisle, and there was a guy who's about 6'3" at the end. I said, I think that guy in the red shirt's going to be the man for the job for you. Uh, so
mm.
so I can feel that. But so you knew you had to be the smartest guy. So did that lead you into just diving into the strategy of the game and all that?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you have to do because I guess with my kind of catchphrase and what I was always told playing, like, don't be a robot, be a football player. The route may say run 5 yards and out, but if it's third down and six, run a 7 yard route. So just in case you get underthrown or just in case you want to get past the six. So think about that stuff there. If you don't have to think on the field, you can play a lot faster. You play faster, that's the edge you may be able to get. So you got to kind of take the hand that you dealt as far as the physical traits and do everything else. So I try my best to know what I know. And like I said, I only played D3. I didn't play in pro, so there's some concepts that are a little bit beyond me. I try not to outkick my coverage per se on that front, but I know what I know. So I'm happy with what I know, and I try to color inside those lines.
Yeah, and honestly, what I've seen on your channel, you do a great job, and really, understanding players' roles within what they're supposed to do, and a lot of technique stuff. Really enjoyed watching your last video. I watched a good 45 minutes before I sent you that message, and I was like, all right, I can dig it.
They get kind of
Um,
long, man. They get kind of long when you do the
well,
full, you do every play. But
yeah, I mean that's what some people don't understand too is you can either be really detailed, like super detailed on every play, or you can try and get through everything. If you're going to be
mhm,
super detailed on every play, you're going to be there for 5 hours.
yeah,
It's just the way it is. You can spend 5-10 minutes on each play,
mhm,
and because I've had some people reach out to me over the time, they're like, I wish you would do every play in the game, because I try and go to a pretty high detail level, and I go, you don't know what you're asking for. One, I don't got that much time in the week,
yeah,
because it takes me on editing anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes per play to
yeah.
get through, and so I'm like, I don't have that much time for that many plays. When you're talking 60, 70 offensive plays, 60, 70 defensive plays, ain't happening.
Yeah,
But I really, really liked what you're doing on your channel. So,
appreciate it.
I went and looked at some Panthers film because obviously we played Monday night. So I spent
Mhm.
Monday watching, I watched the Arizona game, which I'd watched that live. I watched the Arizona game, the film from that, and I'm spacing on who you guys played the week before, but I watched that game as well. Um,
Um, my mind just went blank. You telling me it went blank. Was it not the Giants? Was it the Giants? Gosh.
Well, anyways, it
Uh,
doesn't. I mean,
yeah,
I don't remember as much because I wasn't watching the other team. I was watching what the Panthers were doing.
yeah.
Um, so kind of from
Saints.
your
Sorry,
perspective,
it was
yeah,
the
yeah,
Saints.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah. What do you expect? You have the 49ers coming to town, and they're a team that has had a lot of success, obviously, over the last couple years. And, we're 2-2 this year, so it's 500 ball. We are first in our division. The defense is looking pretty strong, but so when you guys have had some struggles offensively, um, what do you see from your team? What do you think are going to be the keys and kind of what you would foresee the Panthers trying to do against this 49ers defense?
Well, first of all, I want to say I appreciate you saying we've had struggles because that is being very nice about how the Panthers offense have been. We are one of the historically worst offenses in the league. We're only averaging 52.3 plays per game. That will be on pace for the worst amount of offensive plays in NFL history. So that's the struggle that we're facing. But you got to think about, okay, why? And
Right.
our third down offense is pretty bad as well. Then you can go down a little bit deeper and say, hey, why is your third down? Are you in third and long? Are you in third and manageable? You're just not doing well. Like, what's going on? Like, what's going on first and second down? So I think early on we were struggling on first and second down, but once we started committing to the running game a little bit more, realizing that we had number 22 in the backfield and started giving him the ball, we started getting a little bit more favorable matchups because he can get 3-4 yards per carry easily and putting you in the 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, something where the playbook's a little bit more open. So I think once we started realizing that a little bit after the first week, um, things changed, but the third down struggle still stayed the same. I mean, this offense, we're still starting a rookie left tackle, and he's going through the gauntlet right now. You opened up your first career starters against Myles Garrett. You get Cam Jordan just a couple weeks ago, And then this week you got you got Nick Bosa. So baptism by fire is a real thing for our rookie left tackle. But to be honest, one thing that's been bothering the Panthers for years is the offensive line, but this year that's not the case. And so what I expect them to try to do is to hopefully try to run the ball. Christian McCaffrey only had 8 carries last week. Obviously, you can blame it on game flow a little bit, but it was a 10-10 ball game going into the fourth. And so it's just been a struggle of trying to figure out what the identity is, because you have a guy in Ben McAdoo, who's the offensive coordinator, who everybody knows for the funny haircut, the bad press conferences, it up in New York, and just whatever. He took some time off from football, spent some time in Jacksonville under Urban Meyer, good or bad there. And then he went to Dallas last year, obviously on their staff. Didn't really have a significant position, but you're working with those guys like that. Obviously, McCarthy has the West Coast system. I think he spent some time with McCarthy anyway in Green Bay, so that's probably why
Mm-hmm.
he was there. So you would think, okay, hey, maybe he's adapted to the newer trends that are in the NFL, whether it's something a lot of the stuff that Kyle has innovated kind of and brought him and McVay and stuff like that. Um, but he hasn't. And that's the unfortunate part. A lot of the stuff seems very static, not much motion, pretty simple pass concepts. And we're not really a precision type of offense. We don't execute at a high level. We have great athletes. We have a lot of versatility, whether it's DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson with his speed, or Christian with his versatility when he's healthy. But we're trying to put a little bit too much pressure on the execution standpoint versus a guy like we had in North Turner. He was very keen on, okay, he's going to get the guy with the running back, but he's also going to use a lot of different things to get guys in space and create matchups. Kind of what Kyle does with you guys. I mean, you guys don't have a Justin Jefferson there that's just a elite route runner, but you find ways to get your playmakers the ball at times when it counts and give the quarterback simple reads and stuff like that. So I think there's been a little push and pull, and not to mention Baker Mayfield's only been here like 6-7 weeks, and he came off a shoulder surgery this offseason. Now he changed his throwing motion also, so he's only been throwing since like February. So he's been all over the place, and it's just been a mixed bag of everything. It's almost been death by 1,000 paper cuts for us, unfortunately. But I think the way to victory is probably just to try to run the ball, keep the thing in manageable, stay ahead of the chains. Getting behind the chains, uh, it's not a good it's not a good deal for against this type of defense. The defense is gonna do a lot of different things from a front standpoint as far as twists and stunts, and that's the one concern. We've done a lot better as far as offensive line, like I told you, but being able to communicate and pass things off properly has been a struggle for this team in the past. And on the other side of the ball, sophisticated running games have given us some trouble also. So the trenches are going to be a big thing to pay attention to. I mean, this starts and ends in the trenches anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
I think starting with the run and using that to set up everything else will be the way to go.
Yeah, and like you said, you hope that would be their game plan with Ben McAdoo. I don't know if that's going to be where he comes from, just because he, like you said, he does have a lot of that Mike McCarthy in him,
Mm-hmm.
and Mike McCarthy, he's what I've seen is he's much more along like the Andy Reid style of the West Coast offense, that
Yeah.
kind of vein, and that's what I've seen from McAdoo as well. That the West Coast offense a lot of times is thought about from the passing perspective. But if you
Mm-hmm.
look historically at a lot of Bill Walsh's offenses, Mike Holmgren's offenses, Mike Shanahan's offenses, they were all very actually run heavy.
Mm-hmm.
More balanced, I would say. But
Yeah.
as when you look at comparative to the league, it was always more run focused than the rest of the league. I've brought this up on a few different shows that most people, when they think of like our 1994 team, which was Steve Young, Jerry
Yeah.
Rice, right, Deion Sanders, last Super Bowl team, people think about the high powered passing game. It was the
Yeah.
number one offense in the NFL, but they were out of 28 teams in the league at that time. They were 18th in the league in passing attempts. They were sixth in rushing attempts. So when
Mm-hmm.
you look at comparative to the rest of the league, they were a more run heavy team than most teams in the league, and they
Mm-hmm.
have Steve Young and Jerry Rice
Yeah.
and Deion Sanders, who was playing wideout. A lot of people forget that Deion Sanders played receiver.
Yeah.
You want to talk about one of the fastest deep threats you've ever had. And they were mostly a ball control passing offense. I think it was 85% of their passes were under 15 yards.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but that's a lot of what you see with the West Coast when you see Ben McAdoo and McCarthy and Andy Reid, they went much more passing oriented in that.
Hmm.
Especially like Andy Reid. I mean, that dude loves to throw the ball. He has always loved to throw the ball.
Yeah.
That's where I've had frustrations with our fans, because people will look at, especially with us drafting Trey Lance, and say, well, look at how Andy Reid is using Patrick Mahomes. We need to
Hmm.
do that. And I go, when it comes to Trey Lance, and I'm like, you will not get that. Andy Reid has always wanted to throw the ball. Andy Reid was throwing the ball a lot when he had Michael Vick as a quarterback, a
Yeah.
running quarterback, who wasn't a great passer necessarily.
Yeah.
He had a really strong arm, but he
Yeah.
struggled with his reads. He struggled with his accuracy. Donovan McNabb was leading the league in passing attempts, or near the top of the league every year under Andy Reid. Alex Smith threw more passes under Andy Reid than any other
Yeah.
team he was on. Um, so you look at Andy Reid, it's like he wants, and I see a lot of that with Ben McAdoo, and
Yeah.
that would be my concern if I was on a Panthers fan coming into this game, and looking at a 49ers defense that you go, they're tough to throw on.
Mhm.
Especially if you don't have a third and short, they're going to be really tough, because they do really good in playing soft zones. They don't bite on the distractions underneath, and they're going to force you to throw it underneath and then break a tackle, because they're going to
Mhm.
rally. And one thing that they've done this well, that you see, they're allowing 11.5 points per game right now. And historically, if we put it in perspective, the 85 Bears allowed, I think it was 12.4 points per game.
Mhm.
The 2000 Ravens allowed 10.3 points per game. The number two defense in league history behind the 2000 Ravens in points per game was at 11.7. So if this
Yeah.
holds up, I mean, you're talking a historically good defense. And one of the reasons why is because on those third downs, they've been such good tacklers in coming up and making a play. So if you can't force them to have to start driving on the underneath stuff, you're not going to stretch them deep and pick up that first down.
Yeah.
So it's like you say, the key will be, can they run the ball? And I think if they're going to run the ball, it's got to be between the tackles. Um, because we are down right now. We're banged up at the defensive tackle spot. We've got 3 defensive tackles on the injury report.
Oh wow.
Uh, 2 of them starting. Javon Kinlaw and Armstead have been dealing with issues. Kinlaw with his knee that he had reconstructed last year. Eric Armstead's dealing with plantar fasciitis. And so, we're banged up there. We're going to be relying heavily on Kevin Givens, Hassan Ridgeway, and probably some Kerry Hyder in there. So, how much can we hold up through a whole game if they decide, okay, we're going to come out and we're going to pound the rock between the tackles, and that they're going to commit to it. That will be interesting. Can they get movement? Can they, because as you know, when it comes to running the ball, you have to be patient.
Mhm.
You have to be willing to take that 1 yard run, that 2 yard
Yeah.
run, and you have to be able to convert a few third and longs. You don't have to convert a lot. You just have to keep going at it, keep trying. You cannot become one dimensional. And when I look at some of Baker Mayfield's struggles, we'll call them struggles. Um, is that some of it is they're putting him in some unfavorable positions.
Yeah.
They're putting him in positions where he's having to try and convert the third and longs. He's having a lot put on him, as you said, coming into a new offense, coming into a new situation with new receivers, coming into off of shoulder surgery. Baker Mayfield is a guy with a lot of talent. There's a reason why he was drafted where he was.
Right.
It wasn't just because he could be good in an insurance commercial. Um, you know, so with some of Baker Mayfield's struggles, I look at some of it is putting him in a rough situation. Some of it is some things that have been a problem for Baker for a little while. What do you see as what are maybe some key areas that he's struggling a little bit? And not to put you on the hot seat, I know that can be divisive with your fans. What do you see as some areas that you would say, if we can shore this up a little bit better, we can have some success? Or these are things that they need to avoid doing this?
Well, I think, and Baker's like you said, he has the talent. I definitely don't think Baker is as bad as he's shown. Like, there's just literally no way he's been like. I don't think he's been. 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 I don't think he's b When I tell you how historically bad his numbers are, and it's easy for the Baker haters to pile on because there's a laundry list of that evidence to just show it. But I just don't feel like he's fully comfortable. Like I mean, this is a problem in Cleveland. So there's some problems that have carried over from Cleveland. So you can't make excuses. The him being new in the offense to me is a legit excuse. The shoulder surgery and changing his throwing motion, that's a legit excuse to me. But being a little bit antsy in the pocket, not trusting the protection, sometimes creating your own pressure by scrambling out when the pocket is actually there. Because, like I said, our offensive line in years past has been bad. And so Sam Darnold, he would get happy feet last year just because of, I guess, the seeing ghost and feeling pressure that wasn't there. But pretty much, I mean, week one was a little bit tough, obviously, against Cleveland with Myles Garrett. But for the most part, this offensive line has been very much approved. So not seeing him being able to sit in the pocket and just deliver has been a little bit frustrating. So he can struggle there at times, but it's not just that. It's sometimes he's not trusting, not going through his progressions, and that just because he's rushing, because he doesn't trust the protection, or he has his mind made up, or he may not be fully understanding what Ben McAdoo wants to accomplish from this play. And so you see him almost looking at guys that are open and like, or not almost open, but if you kind of wait a half a beat, he's going to pop open in the second window, but he's coming off of that and looking for the check down sometimes, or there's plays where you can see plays where there's everybody's open and he may have his mind made up, so he'll just check it down to Christian McCaffrey. He's the best player on the team. That's never a bad idea. But if you got a tight end going up the seam for 20 yards, you want to kind of take the chunk play and kind of save, I guess, the juice on Christian McCaffrey. So it's been a mixed bag. Like I said, it's been death by a thousand paper because we talked about third down. It's almost like the offensive line is pretty sound, but on the gotta have it downs or in the gotta have it moments, whether it's third, fourth, or the red zone, the offensive line might break down when the call gets a little bit too exotic from a rush standpoint or a zone blitz standpoint from there, and then it breaks down there. When the protection is there, Baker may not see the open receiver. When Baker has time and he's cool in the pocket, there may not be guys open. Now, there's been some controversy a little bit about Mike Rule talking about receivers not getting as much separation, and I talked about our receivers not being like precision route runners, and I think it's 100% true. Honestly, Baker, I mean, pretty much Matt Rule, anything he says these days is going to be on deaf ears from our fan base. But I
Right.
try to make some sense out of it, and when I see the film, he's right. I mean, the Saints really got in our face and challenged us. I would expect. I mean, you say the 49ers play a lot more zone, but I do see some man at times on certain
Hmm.
scenarios, and I think that just based on game plan, I wouldn't be surprised to see them play a lot more man coverage this week because the Saints, they're kind of like you guys. I mean, they don't have as good of rush, obviously, and they blitz probably a lot more than you guys do because that's just how Dennis Allen is. They're very aggressive. They run to the football. They'll get in your face. They're going to challenge you, and they're going to make you beat them one-on-one. They get a lot of pass interference, illegal contacts, and holding calls, but a lot of the times you have to be a very accurate quarterback to be able to complete passes against man coverage. It's not just selling in zone and finding areas. So stuff happens a lot faster then. So I'm I'll be interested to see. It's a lot. Like I said, it's not just Baker. It's a lot more moving parts, and it's almost like when we plug one hole, another leak pops up right behind us. So I would expect to see something hopefully easy early on to get him going. We had some things going early on in this game, but there were some drop passes. And once kind of we get outside of that 10 to 15 play script that we thought about the night before, things start to get a little bit hairy. We get those, I mean, I'm sure you know about how game plans go. They come in with that 10, 12 play script for that they thought about all week. But outside of that, you have to start making adjustments. And I think we've kind of struggled there. And we have to be able to get anything. Our defense has been pretty solid, but when your offense is only getting 50 something plays, your defense is going to wear out by the fourth quarter. And I think with you guys running game, it could probably happen by the second quarter, just because I expect you guys to try to run the ball and wear this defense out because where they have struggled, it has been the running game. And Cleveland showed it. I mean, you guys running game is a little bit more exotic than theirs. They kind of just line up, lean on you, and let Chubb do his thing. Versus you guys have a lot more misdirection, different type of blocks and angles. So it'll be different to see how those things work out on that side. But I think the offense just has to do what they can to keep things honest, move the ball a little bit. I think they can. We're down some safeties, but don't do anything to put the defense in any kind of bad scenarios, and just hopefully protect the ball, hopefully protect the quarterback. And I'm just hoping it clicks at some point for this offense because it just can't. I just don't. It's too much talent to be the worst offense of all time in NFL history, and that's the pace they're on. I mean, I know the 49ers have been doing their thing, but I want to get your perspective, obviously, on that too. Do you think they've been tested? I know some of these teams that they're playing, obviously, the Broncos, they've had their struggles and they'll play tonight, but I mean on Thursday. But you guys have played the Bears in that mud slopper, the Seahawks. Geno's been playing pretty solid, but the Broncos, whatever. And I think you guys pretty much own the Rams for the most part. I mean, obviously, a drop pick away. I don't have to remind you, a drop pick away from winning that game, but I think you guys pretty much own the Rams. So I don't want to take too much weight in what I saw on Monday because historically, you guys have pretty much owned them since McVay has been there. And if not, you've given their offense some of their worst production. I think what Stafford's worst games came against you guys last year. So I try to put that one a little bit whatever. But do you guys feel like you've been tested enough to the point that you can see, okay, yeah, you're on a historic pace, but is it because you've been
Right.
feasting on the little guys and we're another little guy? I'm not gonna say we're gonna just kill you guys, but how do you feel like it's been that?
I see what you're. I mean, because when you look at like the Bears, they're not exactly an offensive powerhouse.
Right.
Uh, it's the Seahawks that are in a rebuilding year. Yes, they threw up a ton of points on the Lions. It's the
Yeah.
Lions. I mean, now they're still an NFL team. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. We then held Denver to 9 points. But Denver hasn't been scoring on anybody. They have not been having a very potent offense. They're really
Yeah.
struggling to get in a rhythm with Russell Wilson there. And like you say, we have owned the Rams for a number of times, except for in the most important game that we have against them. I like that you as a Panthers fan talk about the drop pick because
Yeah.
that is a polarizing play
Yeah.
among 49ers fans because and for the very same reasons of why we're polarized already. It's over a quarterback. Is that people will say that was why that we were a drop pick away from that game, and you know people who are on one side of the Jimmy Garoppolo argument will then say, well, that's just an excuse, and that's ignoring the terribleness that was the rest of the game. And people on the other side, they use that as the excuse of why Garoppolo's performance in that game was okay, almost, that he wasn't up to snuff. Now, again, the guy had a shoulder issue that required surgery. Debo Samuel this week came out and said that his thumb injury was so bad he couldn't even grip the ball. That's why he had the wrap on his
Mm.
thumb, was just so he could even grip the ball because the ligament was so torn in his thumb. So yeah, that those things will affect your performance as a quarterback. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo also, they went out and spent 3 first-round picks to move on from him.
Yeah.
So there are some limitations there, and there's issues of availability. That's been historically. Now they go out and get a guy to replace him, and he's not available for injury. But when it comes to has our defense been tested, they haven't been tested against a high powered offense. We're going to see that probably when we face the Chiefs. That'll be an
Yeah.
interesting game. They'll definitely get tested then. Um, they I think it's kind of, though, when you see a good team, you should beat the teams that you should beat, right? You need to beat the teams that you should beat. And I look at the same thing on defense. You should shut down the offenses that you should shut down. And that's what you've seen from them.
Mhm.
Now, week 1 against Chicago, yes, it was in a mud slop, but there were some bad penalties. I mean, we had like 11 penalties on defense, something like that. It was just, and some really big ones that roughing the passer penalties on third down, kind of a thing, illegal contact, and then we had a couple bad busts in coverage. And now, credit to Justin Fields. One of them was an old West Coast staple. It was Spider 2Y banana, and the Y banana route is an alert. It's not even in the progression, and we busted that route, and Justin Fields saw it and through that route. So kudos to him on seeing that, even though it's not even in the progression. It's just an alert, but of recognizing the bust. But that's what you've seen since then. I haven't seen the bust in coverage. Now, we've also been playing a slightly different defense this year than last year. The defense has evolved over the years. When Kyle Shanahan came in, it was very much the Seattle 3, the Seattle cover 3 defense, that it was 90% of the time it was going to be either cover 3 or cover 1, and that was their disguise. Was it man or zone? And that's what they were constantly trying to disguise. That was it. There was not a lot of cover 2, only on like deep passing situations. You really didn't have a lot of blitzing. As with zone behind it, like you didn't see zone blitzes. If they were going to blitz, it was going to be cover 1, and just bring a over time, it's kind of evolved with D'Amico Ryans. He's gone more of a hybrid between the Saleh style with the Seattle 3, and Saleh was evolving the defense, and now it's kind of this blend of that Seattle 3 and a little bit of like the Fangio style defense, which when I put on the tape of the Panthers on your defense, I actually went and I was like, okay, who's the defensive coordinator here? I need to look this up, and what's his history, because it reminded me so much of Vic Fangio's defense with the 49ers in 2011 through 14. It really, really did. I think your defense is criminally underrated right now. They have been put in some rough positions by some bad turnovers. Now, when I look at it, I also see some of those are not like, oh, just it's all on the quarterback, because like he had one against the Cardinals where it was batted at the line and then picked off. I mean, it's JJ Swat, like some of that's on your offensive coordinator. Some of that's on the offensive line. I mean, if you're having a quick throw out there, if you know that there's going to be the option for a quick throw on the slant, like that tackle has got to figure out how to get his hands down. So you can't put that on your court. Like I have a hard time putting batted balls on a quarterback. The offensive line has a role in that. I was always coached as when I played running back, that if we knew like it was going to be a play action fake and a run to the flat, even in high school, you were coached this way of like we were told, take your helmet and put it at the crotch, because it'll keep a guy's hands down, right?
100%.
Right. And if you're a tackle, then try and block somebody in the ribs, because if somebody gets poked in the ribs, they want to pull their arms down, right?
It's a reflex,
so you get into their ribs, and you aren't seeing that kind of stuff. So it seems like there's a disconnection within the entire scheme. And like I say, sometimes it's really easy to point to the quarterback, and obviously, I mean, there's like you say, examples that make it easy to do that, but there are more systemic issues that when you have an offense that is struggling, it's not just one area. There is going to be many areas. And so as far as our defense versus your offense, I think they're going to come into it and say, okay, the one person you don't let beat you is going to be Christian McCaffrey. So there's going to be a game plan that's centered around rundowns. Let's make sure we know where Christian McCaffrey is at all times. And so we can get into the passing situations and unleash a Drake Jackson and a Menahu and Ebukam and Nick Bosa, and they're going to move him around, I see, versus your offensive line. Now, because what I think is, if you're in an obvious passing situation, you're going to have a tight end over by your rookie left tackle, right? Like he's gonna be over there, and they're going to want to give him some help, because no coordinator wants to put a rookie tackle on Nick Bosa, who's leading the league in sacks, leading the league in quarterback hits, leading the league in quarterback pressures, and leading the league in double teams. He has just turned out to be a stellar player. So they're going to have to try and account for him. So that means he'll get moved around. He'll go left side. He'll go right side. They're going to try and get him in a favorable matchup. But that also means that's going to make it tougher on Baker, as far as they're not going to give him like full field reads. Or a lot of times when people think of full field reads, I think there's often a misconception there, because what it usually is, and what I always see on film, is you have one concept to the left and one passing concept to the right, and each one has answers for different defenses. So, over here on your left, you may have a 2 receiver route that has a rub pick action. That's your man coverage beater. And on the right, you're going to have maybe 2 passing concepts built in. It might be, you might have a sail concept that, or which would be one passing concept, or you may tie it in with a corner and a corner route and a post route and make it also a scissors concept, deep or something like that. Or you can have something that's going to be like a sucker concept with a shallow cross mesh concept added in to give you multiple answers for multiple defenses, and it's up to the quarterback to identify which concept are you working based upon what the defense is showing.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that post snap they're reading the whole field.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest misconception people have, is when they think of full field reads, they expect that quarterback to scan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you go, no, that's not how this works. Usually, it's if there's a single safety and you have that coverage check movement, they're going to be going 1, 2 over here, or 1, 2, and 3 over there. Very really, you don't have past 3 on any passing concepts, where you start to where it's like you hit to maybe a fifth progression is when teams have like a trapping defense, where they're going to show you one thing to trap you into a concept versus something else. And so it's 1, 2, oh, they're trapping, get over here, 1, 2, 3, move through. That's tough. That's a tough
Yeah.
order by for an offense. But
because you don't have time,
right.
you don't have time to do all the full field reads, like you're saying.
So what that means is when you have to keep a tight end into to chip, or running back to check and release or chip and release, that means you have another route that's slower into the progression out into the pattern, and so it limits what you can do. When you have 3 that you can put in one area, that gives you a triangle. You can do triangle stretches. You can put a 3 on 2. It's easier against zones when you can do that. When you're having to keep one of those guys in, that means you have less ability to stretch those zones. That makes it a lot harder on your quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have to keep somebody in, and basically you have, if they're man coverage and it's single safety, that's an option. If not, that's not an option at all. I only have one side of the field that I can read, and the defense knows that they're going to roll coverage that direction. So when you have the more guys you have to keep in to protect, the harder it makes it for your quarterback. And so do they do that versus this 49ers front? And what are you seeing from that? Do you see them trying to keep guys in to help keep Baker clean, and trying to maybe make it, it's a 1 and 2 and take off running kind of a thing? Or what do you see on that end?
Yeah, I do see them. And just going off of, like I said, we played the Browns and Myles Garrett. I mean, granted, it was his first start. And Ike Ekwonu, the left tackle, first round pick, has made a lot of progress since then. I think, like I said, I think going against these type of talents has helped. But he won't be tested like he will on Sunday. He hasn't been tested like that since week 1. So they'll probably give some opportunity to show, okay, hey, can you handle this on your own? How much help do you need? Because week 1, there were chips from the running back. There were tight ends coming in with chips as well. There were tight ends on that side almost all the time, just to at least change the distance and the angle that the DN had to come from. At some points, it kind of hurt Icky, because it kind of threw his rhythm off. It kind of, I don't know. It obviously it can help because it buys more time for the quarterback. But sometimes when you have a offensive lineman whose feet aren't where they really need to be, and that's what the one thing, he's a road grader. I mean, he's awesome in the running game. He's huge. The pass protection kind of needs a little bit of work. You saw some of the other tackles, not to go on a tangent, but Charles Cross and Neal, a little bit more polished in the passing game, because it's kind of what they were a little bit more used to versus NC State. They had a little bit more of a pro style. They ran a lot more. So the pass protection was a little work in progress. So they gave him a lot more help. I do expect some tight ends. I do expect some chips. We don't use Christian McCaffrey in the passing game like some of our prior offensive coordinators have. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him stay in the backfield, because he's actually, as small as he is, this guy does his job, and he's a great pass protector when it comes to that. And it's unfortunate because he's one of your best receivers as well, but you rather have time to throw, because that pass rush can ruin the game plan versus having Christian McCaffrey out in routes. I don't expect him to be static in the backfield. I do expect him to release more, but I definitely see them giving a lot more help there. And you talked about the interior defensive line, and that's kind of been our strength this year because of the struggles of the rookie. But our former all pro right tackle, Taylor Moton, has struggled this year. Honestly, in my personal opinion, just seeing him on film, he looks hurt. He's not moving well. He was never perfect, but he's not moving well. Like, some of the stuff that's been happening has been pretty bad. So I don't see just them putting Bosa on the rookie and just letting him feast. I think they're going to try both sides because I think they'll see opportunity from both sides there. Um, how they adjust, like I said, to the twist and the stunts, that'll be the kind of the telltale. But I definitely see them giving help to the rookie. Christian will be in the backfield and staying in a little bit more, and definitely some tight end work because the tight ends aren't the best pass catchers anyway. Even though Baker, he loves his tight ends, and McAdoo loves his tight ends as well, no matter what name is on the back of the jersey. But they're going to be necessary to help protect. And unfortunately, you don't want to give too much help when they're only blitzing four because, like you said, it's just a numbers game at that point, and you can't really test zones or coverages in general when you don't have enough guys in the route. So it's going to be that chess match, that push and pull, and we'll see what happens. But I actually have a question personally. A lot of
Sure.
fans, they're already looking forward to next year. I told you, I don't do this, but they're looking in that draft. They're expecting Matt Rule to be fired. I don't see. I actually see that being the case eventually, just if this keeps up, because our schedule doesn't get any easier. But I wanted to figure. I mean, you went into it a little bit, the kind of the differences between D'Amico Ryan's style and Salah's style. Some people are really high on D'Amico, and they're like, "Hey, this could be just a tryout for him to be our head coach next year." And some people are like, "Hey, he just inherited a good defense from Salah, and Salah got a job." So, like, I want you to. Can you kind of like, I guess, put it into some perspective? How much is it more so of just D'Amico catching the keys to the Ferrari and not wrecking the car, or is it like Salah laid the blueprint and whatever, or D'Amico's putting, like you said, he put his own spin on it too. But I want
Yeah.
to know what if he is our next coach, what could the Panthers expect? Because if we're picking that high, some people are saying, "Oh, Will Anderson's at the top of the draft, so we have Brian Burns and Will Anderson. We see what they're doing with their D line, like they're having these kind of dreams." So I just want to kind of,
Yeah.
can you put it in perspective what you could expect from a D'Amico Ryan style versus a Sala versus just in general?
Yeah, so I'm really high on D'Amico Ryans. Now,
Yeah.
I liked Sala. I really like Sala. I think D'Amico has taken it to another level. Now, again, he did inherit a very stacked defense. The 49ers have invested in the defensive side of the ball very heavily. And that's a lot from a philosophical belief from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Kyle Shanahan has said that he believes that you can scheme up enough of an offense. Um, that now it's not saying you don't have to have talent on the defense side of the ball, but you can defeat a lot if you have the right pieces. You can defeat just about any defense. If you have man coverage beating receivers, you can beat man coverage. And then if you got guys who understand zones, they don't have to be the premier guys. Now it helps when you do, where you see like a Debo Samuel in our offense. But you look at our running backs list, you're looking at a laundry list of meh namers. Okay. And I don't mean that as a slight on our running backs, like they're
Nah,
not
I get it.
talented. But what I'm saying is you don't see like a Chubb. You don't see a Christian McCaffrey. You don't see a Saquon Barkley. Okay. You don't see that kind of name power, star power at a running back position. Like, and we just haven't even had a running back play a full season since 2017. Um,
Wow.
that was Carlos Hyde. He was the last guy who actually finished a full season as our running back. So, but yet our running game has continued to get production, and that is due to a lot of the scheme, a lot of the execution of the scheme, guys who can at least execute it. Jeff Wilson Jr., who has been a career backup, had a 32-yard run for a touchdown against the Rams Monday night because the scheme was well executed. Kyle pulled a really great design play on that one. It was this really. I've only seen it run a couple times in the last few years. It was a wham block back off of a wide zone, but um, they as far as D'Amico, when they've looked at the defense side of the ball, Kyle has said you have to have premier talent on the defensive side of the ball to be good. Um, because the defense inherently, when you think about an offense's ability to game plan, is at a little bit of a disadvantage. Um, because they can try and take, if you're in man coverage, they can run pick rub routes. If you're in zone coverage, they can stretch you. They have answers. So they've looked at the defense side of the ball and said, okay, we're going to invest in premier talent there. You see that this offseason, our biggest free agent signing was Charvarius Ward.
Yeah.
We invested heavily in that. They believed in Talanoa Hufanga, who has just been playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
They have Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead. They've got first round picks all along that defensive line. Eric Armstead was a first round pick. Javon Kinlaw was a first round pick. Nick Bosa was a first round pick. Drake Jackson is the second round pick. You have guys like Fred Warner, who got a huge extension. Dre Greenlaw, who just got an extension. They've invested in the talent on that side of the ball. That being said, if D'Amico Ryans doesn't get a head coaching position next year, I will go on a hunger strike or something. I don't know. That's how strongly I feel for him. Like, you want to talk about probably one of the smartest coaches in the game. A guy who has a really good feel for what the offense is trying to do, for timing his calls, for really good design of pass rush. It's easy to look at the 49ers defense and say, okay, well, yeah, they get all these pressures and all these sacks. They got all this talent. Not all of it is just pure talent. As a coach, they still have to put guys in positions to win and have really well designed rushes. Very rarely in an obvious passing situation is it just going to be, we're going to line up with four guys and we're going to let Nick Bosa just beat his man. A lot of times it's, we're going to let Nick Bosa beat his man, and the other three guys are going to be running a game. And you don't know, it's not just one stunt, it's not just two stunts, it'll be looping stunts, and then they'll throw in a slot blitz on top of it, that when they see you picking up that stunt and your tackle's crashing down, they're going to bring that slot blitz and he's coming untouched. The feel he has for the timing, and the feel he has for disguise into coaching up these guys into how to disguise their defenses, to then rotate into things post snap and hit their landmarks and versus different offenses, is really high level stuff. The matching concepts that they brought in, very much like Saban and Fangio, are complex defenses, and seeing the guys execute those at a high level, that speaks to a coordinator who's preparing his guys very well. When you look at a guy like Diamador Lenore, who's our slot corner now, who played unbelievably against Cooper Kupp, that he was a guy who got benched last year when we had some injuries at corner because he was unprepared in some situations. And then to see him this year come in and some situations run the route for the receiver, showing how prepared he was, means that that's a culture of preparation, and his coordinator is seeing things on film with him that they are pointing out. And because if it's one player, okay, when you start seeing an entire defense is doing this, that's speaking to somebody teaching them this along the way. And that's what you see with D'Amico Ryans. He's just had, when I say I'm beyond impressed with his scheme side of things, that doesn't come lightly. I was a big Fangio fan. I really liked a lot of the stuff Fangio was doing. I wasn't super sold on Saleh his first year. As he started to progress the defense in 18 and 19 and 20, that's when I was like, okay, I saw growth with him and I was really getting on board. With D'Amico, it's like he took a recipe that Saleh had, and he said, okay, I can do this recipe. Now I'm going to add my own spin on it, and we're going to make it 5-star. If anybody's saying, well, okay, he's just inherited a great defense. No, we've seen guys over the years around the league inherit great defenses and do not perform as well. There's usually a drop off if it's just about the talent on the side of the ball. You still have to have a good mind running that defense. And so, and a great example of that would be the 49ers. We had Vic Fangio here from 2011 to 2014. And even in 2014, our team was not very good. Our defense was still like sixth in the league.
Yeah.
The next year, we bring in Jim O'Neill, and we were like 32nd in the league. Like we were a horrible
Yeah.
defense that year. And a lot of there wasn't a massive amount of player turnover. There were still some good players on that side of the ball. I mean, there wasn't enough to make that kind of a turnover. It was just a change in scheme and
Yeah.
a coach who wasn't ready. So, if I was your team now, I mean, because your defense is like I said, it's criminally underrated. They have done a good job of building talent along their defensive line for years.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, gosh, going back into even 6-7 years ago, it was like whenever I would watch film of the Panthers, I'd always go, man, they got one of the best defensive lines in the league.
Yeah.
These guys are stout and they know what they're doing, and so there's talent on the defensive side of the ball. For us, when I look at your defense, I'm looking at it and going, okay, the biggest thing, like I said, they've been put in some rough positions with some untimely turnovers and things, and the offense not always performing really well. As us on offense, I think it's going to come down to can we attack the edges. That's where we have a chance to get after you if we can attack the edge. It's not going to be an easy job by no means, but that will slow down your pass rush, because your pass rush, like I said, it's better than people are giving it credit for. I don't think, especially with us on a third string left tackle, I
Yeah.
don't see us being able to just sit there and drop back all game and hope to have a lot of success. You're not going to give us a lot of time. So the only way to gather that is going to be attack the edges, get those linemen moving east to west,
Yeah.
and that'll allow you to do some things of slowing them down on their read steps, so they won't necessarily just be able to fire off and go get the passer, and that will allow some of the concepts that we want to attack your safeties with, and linebackers. Kyle will attack linebackers more than anybody in the league, just about. So can we do that, establish those things to uh to then put the pressure on Baker in the passing game? If we can then get up, they're going to want to come out and be aggressive early, I think, and get some scores up, so that again it will try and take Christian McCaffrey, your best offensive player, where he's relegated to pass protection duties, where he's
Yeah.
relegated to duties away from just being able to try and scheme him in the run game. So, it's going to be, can the offense hit some plays, get some points up early, to then try and put all that pressure on the offensive line to pass protect, let D'Amico
Yeah.
and his crew go get after it, and force Baker to try and really be patient with the ball when they're down. Because that, if there's one thing I've seen from Baker, is that when the team starts getting down, he will get really aggressive.
Yeah.
And as you know, sometimes that doesn't end well for you. And I do think that there's going to be an interesting dynamic with Bosa and Mayfield in this game.
That's a little bit.
Yeah, I hear that there's some bad blood there. I just, that's a rumor anyways.
Some chatter.
There's just a little bit. So that's what I see as our keys. But your defense is no slouch. Like, they're not gonna just lay down. We're gonna have to hit the edges in the run game. Now, whether that's just straight wide zone the whole time, I see us actually coming out and trying to do a lot of reverses. We do a lot of these reverses with wind back blocks. We haven't seen them in a little while with our team. I think they're going to make an emergence this week. If I was Kyle, that's what I would do. I would start out with some of that stuff, and then look to try and have a lot of vertical stretches down the middle. That's what, if I was Kyle, that's what I would try and do against what I see, because you guys do a lot of matching zones with your safeties, and like you said, you're down a couple safeties. I would be testing those matching zones.
Yeah.
That's where it really reminds me of a Fangio. I see us, you know, doing these wind back blocks out of condensed and bunch formations, because with those matching zones, a lot of times what it is like you'll have, say, the strong side safety. He'll be responsible for matching the number 2 vertical route as it goes deeper than 8 yards. Well, when you bunch and then you exchange the release out of the bunch, sometimes you can that's really hard for those safeties to identify. And if they're having to do this off of while their eyes are on play action,
Mhm.
that's where you have an opportunity to grab one of those guys up and get a bust in coverage. We had some of those versus the Broncos, and Jimmy just didn't see it. Now I think they're
Yeah.
going to try and work those kinks out, and I see that happening early. So if you're the Panthers defense, what do you see as the keys to success versus our offense?
Uh, it's gonna start up front. I mean, our interior defensive line between Matt Ioannidis and Derek Brown have been a lot. I think we had some concerns on the edges, and Derek Brown, he was a first round pick, and a lot of people wanted Isaiah Simmons that year. So, like, fans are hot and cold on him, and he hadn't really lived up to that top 10 value, but he's had a breakout year. I don't know how much weight you put in the PFF. I kind of trust my eyes over them when it comes to us, at least. I use them for like comparative against against other teams because, yeah, I can't watch everybody else. So, but I know what I see from our guys and based off their ratings. But anyway, he's 13th right now, I guess, in D tackles, and he's been playing out of his mind. I think he's kind of realized, and Matt Rule talked about it, he's realized who he is. I mean, you can't get by on just pure brute strength and size like he did in college at Auburn, but he's figured out what his niche is, and he's working his niche, and he's over serving his niche, is what I like to kind of say. And he's doing what he does, and he's playing to his strength. He's been able to get a lot of penetration in the running game, and has really allowed a lot of our, I mean, not a lot of our line, but linebacker Frankie Louvu, who pretty much been our unsung hero. He scored 2 touchdowns he scored a touchdown last week with a pick six, fumble recovery for a touchdown against the Saints. He's been
And
playing lights out. Go
I'll
ahead.
tell you, he pops on film. When I watched it,
Exactly.
he pops on film.
His motor is unreal. And I mean, he's not 59, Luke Kuechly, obviously, but the intensity, the effort, the way it's still, like you said, he jumps out on fin. It gives you those Luke Kuechly vibes, and he's been a good thing. I mean, Shaq Thompson, he had some knee surgery like during camp, so he's still kind of getting his legs back underneath him. But I still think he's a solid vet that's been around for a while. Um, and it's going to be on the interior line to get that penetration to allow guys like Luvu and Shaq to run sideline to sideline if you guys test those edges. I will say that our corners have been doing pretty good in the tackling perspective this year. JC Horn's been playing a lot more nickel because he has that versatility, and he plays in the box a lot more too. He's a lot more physical. I am worried about Jeremy Chin being out. That's a guarantee he's going to be out. But Xavier Woods, he's our big communicator. He's a guy. He's a very smart player. You can see him on film, like physically telling guys almost every play, hey, if you see this, that, whatever, do this, that, whatever, and just kind of directing traffic back there. He's kind of day to day now, so he'll be a big, if he's not there, that'll kind of hurt. And having 2 backup safeties now, one does have some experience. Obviously, Justin Burris was a starter last year, but I feel a lot more comfortable having a guy like Jeremy Chin, who's 215 pounds, but he's almost like an extra linebacker because he's one of our best tacklers on our team. And he's one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player on the team. But it's gonna hurt. And like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if he tests the safeties for sure. And Louvu, if he does have one downside, it's the passing game. He loves to play the run. He loves to get downhill. He loves to flow sideline to sideline because of just the instincts and the speed and stuff. But with the window dressing, the misdirection, the play action, the motion that Kyle likes to do and is known for, I can see him playing some mind games on our linebackers and trying to do that. So that's one thing that's giving me some anxiety. Like I said, it's one of those games where we can't expect the defense to keep us in the game for 3, 4, whatever quarters. They may get you a turnover. I mean, they may be able to get Jimmy a time or two. They finally started to get some interceptions and turnovers now, but it's not going to be something you'll be able to make a living off of. The offense is going to have to do something, and I think it's starting to get a little bit more national traction now. But Matt Rule's record in games where the opposition scores more than 17 points is not good. And the league average for points per game is around 21, 22 on a year-to-year basis. So you can't make a living off of only being able to win when a team scores less than 17 points, because you're putting so much pressure on a defense, and it's just not sustainable in this day and age in the NFL. Yeah, scoring has been down a little bit so far, but I think it's because of the abbreviated preseason and stuff like that. So offenses will catch up eventually. You can't make a living on your defense being like that. Those days are kind of gone, especially when your offense is historically bad. But I'm a little bit nervous. I have a little bit of anxiety about the defense this week, so it's going to be on the offense to come with it. And like I said, mainly it's just because of the safeties being out, but also because of the misdirection. We're a fast-flowing defense as well, and so sometimes they can get caught slipping and getting out of their positions and out of their gaps against certain schemes. So I'm a little bit anxious about that, but I do expect them to try to. And we're a multiple defense, so I do
Mm-hmm.
expect us to try to. I mean, I didn't watch the Rams tape. I did watch the Broncos tape, and obviously they run that. They kind of had they kind of left. They had kind of had 5 men up front. Obviously, they're a little bit different with
Mm-hmm.
their style of defense, but I do see the Panthers coming out and doing that. That's something we tried against Cleveland. They just kind of leaned on us a little bit, man. And it was the first week, and their running game is it's a different animal compared to you guys. I mean, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
they have the back, they have the bruising offensive line. They don't really they do run some concepts that are a little bit complicated, but they're going to do what they do. Nick Chubb is going to break his tackles. He's going to get his yards, and they're going to run the football. If they don't do anything else, they're going to run the football. And like you said, it's going to be tough to see. It'll be interesting to see how Phil Snow matches up. Hopefully, they can try to the first and second down success is going to be key, because I think I like the way we match up on the outside, but it just depends on the out. That's the outside, but down the middle of the
Yeah.
field is going to be a little bit hairy. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, one thing Kyle loves to do is hit that run action, and then one of his favorite concepts is a dagger concept. So it's going to be you run a vertical down the inside, and that's to clear out the safety, and you come in with that dig back over that
Mhm.
linebacker.
Yeah,
And he loves to get like Debo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk in those positions. And like you say, when you have guys who are very aggressive, like Luvu, that does leave that area, because now how do you defend that? Do you sit there? Do you just tell your safeties don't even bite on the run game at all? And you're gonna look to match that dig, or he'll come from with it, bring it on in either side. Sometimes it's a high cross, but when he starts seeing linebackers who get really aggressive, that's where he really goes after him. 2019 when we played you guys, he really went after Luke Kuechly, which was surprising because very few people would say, "I'm going to go after Luke Kuechly." Kyle did, and
yeah,
it was one of the reasons we put up 52 points, because he was able to use Kuechly's strength against him, which is his side to side speed. So I mean, we had so many like double screens. It would be it would be a run action look, fake a screen to the right, and Kuechly would just you'd get him to take 2 steps the wrong way, and then we'd throw a screen to the left, and we'd get a 40-yard play for a touchdown. And the last guy to get beat, and he was beat by 2 steps, was Kuechly.
yeah,
It was like he went after that. Now I will say, like I said, he popped on tape, because to the point where I was sitting there watching, and I paused it to look up what his number was.
yeah.
This guy was. I was like, who's Panthers? This jersey, this number. Isn't he 54, 15?
No, he's
Is that
49.
what his number is?
49.
49.
Yeah,
Okay, I remember there was a 4 in there. I remember
yeah,
looking it up because I was like, who is this guy?
yeah,
I don't because he shows up on tape. Um Sometimes that's a cliche phrase. The guy really pops on tape. No, he really does,
yeah,
because he's always around the ball. He's identifying things, and he's flying to the ball with very little hesitation. So, but like you said, you even if your defense is really good, and we've seen this, we saw this in Denver. If your offense can't be toting their bags as well, you just you can't expect that much out of your defense a long time. So,
yeah.
what's your to kind of land the plane here? What do you see as your prediction for this week? Do you have a score prediction? Do you have some plays you think are going to be made or not made? What's your
Yeah.
prediction?
I think in the NFL is kind of wacky that way right now. I guess for anybody that's a betting man, the Vegas has San Fran as a 7-point favorite. Um, and I'm always weary of home underdogs, and it's whatever. You want to get into the betting numbers. But I think it'll be a lot closer than people think. I know 90% of our fan base thinks it's going to be a blowout. They remember 2019. They watched Monday Night Football. They watched us against the Cardinals of all people. But the NFL is just wacky that way. I'm getting some weird vibes. Like this could be the game that maybe a turnover bounces our way and it ends up being a lot closer. I'm not predicting us to win, but I think that they'll actually do some things. But I think that the offense won't be able to get it together soon enough, and I don't think like I said, I don't think the defense will be able to carry the mail as much as they normally do. So um, I'm gonna say my score prediction, and I gave this this morning. I think it's gonna be 23-17 Niners. Um, I think, like I said, it'll be closer than that 7 by 1 point, obviously. But I just think that I think that something's gonna happen. I don't know. Sometimes the ball is not it's not round. It's oblong shaped. You just never know how it's gonna bounce. I think that the fact that they've been getting turnovers finally recently, I think we'll be able to get Jimmy a time or maybe two. Hopefully, I mean, maybe there'll be an opportunity there. We just have to take advantage. But I do think they at least get one, and that'll kind of either set the offense up, or it'll lead directly to points. And I think that'll be enough. I'm hoping and I predict that hopefully they'll take care of the ball a little bit more offensively, and that'll be enough to keep the score close. I don't know how much they'll produce, but I think not turning the ball over and the defense getting a turnover that leads to a score will be enough to keep it close. And I think I've got Niners 23-17.
I like it. I like it. For me, don't get mad. I see it. I see it 28-13
Okay.
49ers. Now here's the thing. I do agree with you. I think it's going to be closer than that for most of the game. I see it being like 14-10 going into the fourth quarter.
Mm,
Um, I think Kyle's going to come with a very conservative game plan. If we can't hit the big ones early, I think in the first two drives he tries to go up by 14. If not, it's going to be, and now it's going to be a very risk averse shots. Like if it's not there, it's going to be, I think it's going to be very clear to Jimmy Garoppolo, like you eat that sack,
yeah.
um, because they believe in their defense. If you're just going off the numbers, if you look at the 49ers who are, top of the league in defensive DVOA, you look at the Panthers who are near the bottom of the league offensive DVOA, you're liking that matchup and you're going to
Yeah.
sit there and say, okay, we can't have our offense lose this game.
Right.
Um, if the offense doesn't lose this game, we win this game.
That's pretty
And
much.
so I think it's going to be a game plan that then after those first couple series, they'll get aggressive to try and again push the buttons on Mayfield to try and make him try and force the ball down the field. If we don't go up early, it's going to be, and even if we do, I think Kyle's going to go into a very conservative play calling because he's going to say make them score more than 14 points.
Yeah.
Um, against our defense and make them have 3-4 successful long drives. You make them have 3 long drives into the end zone versus our defense. That's a tough ask for anybody, let alone an offense that has been struggling. And
Yeah.
so, I see that, and then I see in the fourth quarter, if it's 14-10, I do see the offense getting a little tight, and there being a turnover there that ends up leading to points, and then another turnover leading to points probably really late in the game, just in desperation. So I think the score is going to look worse than it's going to be. I think it's going to be close for the most part coming down to the fourth quarter. I don't know if your team is going to have quite the firepower to get over that finish line.
Yeah.
Like I say, for the offense to really carry the load on it. Um, and that's, I don't mean that as a knock on your offense. I know you guys are figuring some stuff out, and this is a very good defense that's coming into town.
Yeah.
I think you guys eventually will get it rolling. I'm more glad that we're, from my perspective, that we're facing you now and not 2 months from now. Because who knows, what's going to be happening and how your offense goes in 2 months. But that's how I see it, man. I sure appreciate you joining me with this. This is fun. I
Yeah,
love
man.
talking football with people who know what they're talking about.
No doubt.
It's
For sure.
it's always a fun experience. So I will let you have the last words here. Anything closing you want to leave with all the illustrious NFL fans?
You can just check me out on Twitter at Dunk on Demand, DuncOnDemand, Dunk on Demand. My YouTube channel, Unnecessary Bluntness Sports Talk. Uh, Panthers content, film breakdowns. Wednesday, I pretty much talk about the hottest news. I guess in the NFL is kind of my time to uh, stretch my muscles as far as talking about the rest of the league because I'm a fan of football. I love the Panthers, but we've been bad for the past few years. I still love the game more than anything. So I do all kind of content. So if you want to check me out on social media, do that. I appreciate you having me on here, man. Like I said, it means a lot. Talking shop and talking ball is I can do it all day as well. I mean, I love it, man. So I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Johnny Dell. You can find me on Twitter at JonnyDells. That's Johnny with no H. And also on YouTube at Johnny Dell's Football Academy. That is where I'm at about 90% of the time. So, yeah, that's where you can find me. But thank you so much, Aaron.